single family house that you just built and it's worth around $500,000 is going to be assessed by the city somewhere around $350,000. Yeah, so 1% of that is going to be $3,500, not 35. The worst part about this particular fee is the first 54 cents goes to the state of Oregon. You don't even get to keep it here in Newberg. And beyond that, the city takes their management fee. So we have less than half of the money left. And that money goes to developers, not to the people who can't afford to buy the houses. So, in my opinion, it's not a very good deal for the citizens of Newberg, and it certainly isn't going to help people who are having trouble affording their house. Now, as you know, I'm not the mayor yet, so I'm speaking today as a private citizen. And also know that I, as mayor in Newberg, we're a little bit unique. I am a voting member of the city council. So there are 7 of us. I have to learn to count to 4. Any idea I have on my own is not going to fly. So we are going to work together. That being said, I understand that you prepared questions, and so let's go.
Thank you very much. Testing. Thank you very much, Mayor-elect Rosacker. We invited questions from our city club, and so what you're going to get asked is just a compilation of those questions. Our first question for you today is, what goals do you have as mayor, if any?
Well, my campaign platform has remained the same since the beginning. First of all, our water bill is too high. A lot of years ago, we considered taxes either progressive or regressive. When you have a tax that costs the richest person in town and the poorest person in town the very same number of dollars, that would be a regressive tax, because the poor person has to spend a larger percentage of his income to pay for it. Therefore, we want to remove the items, I want to remove the items that are not part of the water bill itself, or sewer, or sanitation, and get them back to the general fund where they are no longer a tax on the poor folks. Other than that, systems development charges, as I've already mentioned, have gotten to be too high, and we want to reduce those. We've already, the city already has a committee, which I'm a member of, and we will see what we can do. And then the third thing that I'm concerned about is homeless folks. I was raised by a single mom here in Newberg. It is not easy, even back in the 70s and 80s, for a single mom to raise a family of 4. It's no easier today. Those folks are the most vulnerable people in our society. Women who are single are most likely to end up in poverty of any other segment of our society. And because they probably spent their lives raising a family and are at advanced age, they don't have a lot of ways to improve their situation. That's who I want to help. I want to help out the people who are living on the margins, on the fringes, right here in Newberg. I have no interest in attracting homeless people from other towns to come to Newberg.
Thank you. All right, and number 2. The City of Newberg plans to fund infrastructure projects in the Urban Renewal District by dedicating property tax increases within that district to an urban renewal agency, rather than those funds going into their ordinary taxing districts, such as the City of Newberg, Yamhill County, CPRD, and Tualatin Fire and Rescue. Will you fully embrace that plan, known as tax increment financing?
As Mr. Donahue said earlier, I was the lone chief petitioner on the petition to allow folks to vote on that particular measure. I was not successful. As far as I'm concerned, that issue is rested. I have no intention of revisiting that particular issue unless if it comes from somebody else.
What values do you believe should guide your actions as mayor?
I think the first thing that the first value that a mayor should possess is honesty, integrity. If we can't tell you the truth, be straight with folks, then we have no business being out here.
What are the best ways to manage the growing homeless situation in Newberg?
Well, I guess I should have anticipated that question was coming. We have lots of money right now in the system to help folks who are in need. I don't have a lot of sympathy for a young man who lives in Memorial Park or Chickwith and doesn't feel like he should have to get a job to exist. I think that as long as people like that are willing to clean up after themselves, I have no problem with them being there, but I don't think we need to spend any public money to help them afford that lifestyle. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again?
What are the best ways to manage the growing homeless situation in Newberg?
So beyond that, during my campaign, I got to know, I met, and almost everybody is homeless in Newberg. Not as many as we are being led to believe by certain groups of people. In fact, a couple of years ago when the Portland State University did a survey, they found 9. I found a few more than that. Most of them are there by their own choice. I think that we should offer folks like that the opportunity to have a better life in any way that we can. I know that there are several churches, including my own, who feed the people on a regular basis. We certainly don't want to. We're not mean. We don't want to force people to do anything that they don't want to do. But once again, I think that the best way to manage it is to not spend public dollars trying to make it easy on people not to have a job.
I think you've already addressed the first part of this question, which is, as mayor, do you intend to ask the city to make changes to the fees and charges for building permits? The second part of the question was, well, if so, would you recuse yourself from any vote on changes to those fees due to your operation of a construction business?
Fair question. If it came down to the fact, or to a decision that I have been involved with in the past, possibly, just due to the fact that I'm in it line of work, not necessarily. We'll take that on a case-by-case basis, and trust me, if it is a conflict, if it is something that I have dealt with in the past, I will certainly let the folks know, and we'll take the proper action.
During the candidate forum, you mentioned some sort of accessory dwelling unit that you had been trying to permit and that you became frustrated with the fees. Can you be more specific about what kind of ADU you were dealing with and why you felt the fees were unfair?
Yeah, the agency that I was working with is Five Rocks Ranch. I don't know who's, some of you might be familiar with them. If they now use what used to be known as Camp Dam Hill, and it's a charity organization. It's a Christian-based organization that helps folks change their lives who are in a bad spot, whether it be drugs or abuse or whatever. It gives them a place to go and to heal. Once they get done through the process there, then they're looking for houses to transition these folks, to give them a time, a season, where they can live independently outside of the ranch and yet prepare for their life back in society with a job and the whole situation. My church, Northwest Christian Church, is involved in that mission as well, and I happen to live within walking distance of Northwest Christian Church. So what Five Rocks Ranch was looking for is some very small homes for some of these, mainly women, they do help men, that's who are wanting to transition. Most of these folks have a family, so they need 3-bedroom homes. They don't need big homes. So what we were proposing was to build 800 or 900 square foot basic 3-bedroom homes, 2 of them on my piece of property between my house and College Street, so that they build these 2 homes so that they could use them in their mission. So I went to the city to find out what it would cost. And I found out that the systems development charges and the permit fees together would run about $75,000 for these 2 homes. That's exactly what unfair, I don't know that I use that term, but you can call it what you want. That's a lot of money. And how can we create a fund and parcel out $20,000 and then charge $50,000 or $60,000 for permit fees to build that same home? So that's what
I think you just answered this next question, which is, do you live within the city limits?
Oh yeah, that's a requirement, of course, to be on city council or the mayor's if you live 1 year in the city or 2? 1 year, I believe. Thank you. I'm looking at the city manager, by the way.
During your campaign, you used a quote by former President Kennedy to suggest that in order to raise more revenue, Newberg needs to cut taxes. Could you cite that quote again, and would you explain how you interpreted that with that?
Paraphrase the quote from John F. Kennedy. It is a I can't think of the word I'm trying to come up with. It is true that taxes are too high, but it's also true that until we lower taxes, taxes will remain too high. And to raise taxes, we have to lower them first. He was much more eloquent than I am. Basically what he's saying is that the city staff needs more money. They want more money, so you know, it would seem intuitive that they could just take more money out of the public domain and everything's fine. But the truth is, reality is, if we lower taxes to a point where more people want to come to town, buy businesses, employ people, that the city can actually create or actually get taxed more, get more taxes than it would have just by raising the taxes on them.
While you were campaigning, you said your plan was to reduce our water bills. Do you have a plan on how to do that without sacrificing service to our community or the budget needs of our city?
Well, I have a plan. City manager has a plan as well. What we have learned is that we have a common goal. Both of us want to reduce the debt that the city has. He wants to reduce the debt first and lower the taxes later. I would prefer to lower the water bill, which is actually called a municipal services bill, now, and put off some of the savings that we will then pay down on the water treatment plant until later. So between the 2 of us and the other 5 members of city council, I feel sure that we can come to a compromise where we can obtain both goals.
We will.
While campaigning, you stated that Mayor Rogers and the city council mismanaged city funds. What changes do you propose to improve the city budget? And did the budget committee of the city already reject or accept any of these proposed changes?
Yeah, I was not necessarily speaking to the budget. The greater changes that need to be made had to do with the ARPA funds that the city was in control of. Federal dollars that the city had the right to use in almost any way that they chose. I don't really want to rehash the past, but I disagree with several of the things that the money was spent on. If the money could have been used, put towards our water treatment plant, which we have to build, and that would have lowered costs to the entire city, not just a few people who were lucky enough or had the right plan at the right time.
This last question is a two-part question, and it's the last that was submitted to us before today, and then we're going to turn it to open questions to our group. The first part of this question is, can you describe your strengths that you bring with you to support your responsibility as mayor? And then the second part is, can you talk about any possible weaknesses that you might have that would require you to more work fully with other members of your team to support the city of Newberg?
Well, fortunately, the team is very diverse. So we have people with all different areas of talent. My area of expertise has to do with budget and spending the city's money, spending the citizens' money. I have been on the budget committee many years ago. I've been on several city commissions, or I was on several city commissions, and I have been observing. And through my construction work, which by the way I did very little in Newberg, and I can go into the reasons for that later. Newberg wasn't a great place, in my opinion, to do business as a contractor. There were many better places, and that's where I tried to work. As far as my weaknesses, I wish I had a better grasp of the English language, especially written. I struggle some. I have not gone to college, as most of my peers would have, and that's probably going to be my biggest challenge, is learning to communicate effectively. Now, I will tell you that to accomplish that, I have joined the Toastmasters. I am working very hard to try to learn to communicate better. I wish that I would have paid attention in school more and even continued on to college where I'd be more effective.
All right, do we have any questions from community?
Congratulations, Mayor-elect. I have a question. You were talking about your mission with your recovery program. How do you feel that compares to the Peace Trail project that you spoke out against? And how would you handle that situation differently? Basically, the way I heard you explain it, kind of is the same program.
Okay, the Peace Trail Village. It's a great idea. It's not the right place. Many years ago, several years ago, North Valley Friends Church, decided to sell part of that land to Veritas School, which frankly is one of the best schools in the nation. The particular piece of property that they have is also about 2 miles from downtown Newberg, and there's no transportation between that and Newberg. So to use that piece of transitional housing means that everybody there is going to have to make 3 trips a day into Newberg just to eat. Beyond that, my objections to Peace Trail Village were with the ARPA funds. They weren't ready. What they had done, the work that they had done on their project was not done to code. They did not apply for permits, they did not receive permits, there were no inspections done on any of the work that they done. To this date, they have not hooked that church, which is inside the city limits, up to sewer or city water. They're still on their septic and their well that they had installed when they were in Yandell County. Anybody else that is in the county and gets annexed to the city has to hook up the water and sewer immediately. Again, the water bill, the municipal services bill. I don't know how many of you know this, but if you turn your water off at your house today, you would have to continue to pay that bill because it is not a water bill. It is a bill for several things. It's one of the few bills that nonprofit organizations pay to help carry their weight in Newberg. The question for me beyond those things was the ARPA funds. Their application was inadequate. They are now doing something that's considerably different than what they had applied to do. There were a lot of problems with the application. I have no problem with that mission. In fact, when we sat down, when we discussed the initiative petition, I asked the question of everybody in the room. If this project was going on the Providence property down by Highway 99, would anybody object? And to a person, no. Everybody thought that that was a much better place for it, and they would have had no problem with that being there. Does that answer your question?
I have a question.
Testing.
Magic voice. I have a question. You talk about reducing the municipal services bill, which includes more than water, sewer, and stormwater. Are you proposing reducing those charges as well? And if so, what would you be cutting in the general fund to support those services?
Well, the city manager and I have had several conversations on this subject, and there are 3 items currently on your bill that have nothing to do with water. One of them is please.
The 3 line items in question that we've been looking at, the first, the communications fee. We believe we can eliminate the communications fee by, first of all, eliminating our first debt item, the debt for the communications tower. It's not directly related, but it would allow us to do an inter-fund transfer to make up for the lost revenue. So that would enable us to take one line item off. The second line item, which is the public safety fee, we believe we can halve that bill, assuming that our friends in the school district are willing to step up to cover the full cost of the SRO currently being paid for by the city. In other words, a cost share basis with the school district. At this time, we do not have a solution to TUF. So that is 1.5 of the 3 line items. Thank you for asking, Catherine.
The backstory on how this came to be, the water bill. Back in the 90s, when we the citizens passed ballot measure 47, which became 50, which is the bill that says that our taxes only go up by 3% a year. It eliminated most ways for the city and the state and the counties to be able to raise taxes. So one of the ways that is still available, one of the few ways, is fees. The city has the freedom to raise fees without going to vote the people. The other option they would have would be to have a bond. Bonds always get voted on by the people. There's some other smaller ways, but the reason that the municipal services bill has become that instead of a water bill is because because back in the 90s, we started stuffing things on it that we didn't have financed anyway. I remember when I was on the budget committee, we were talking about buying a new truck, a new fire truck. And somebody asked the question, well, how are we going to pay for it? And the answer was, we'll put it on the water bill. That's what we're trying to eliminate. Are we going to be able to reduce the water bill significantly? Yes. Or significantly now? Yes. Are we going to get all of that old stuff off of it at this point? No, probably not. But we're going to change the attitude so that from now on, when we do raise fees, we either go to the people and get their permission, or we find a way to do it within our existing budget.
Battery's down. Just use that mic up there.
I got a question right here. Oh, Will, by the way, this is Will Worthy. He's the city manager. Yeah. Another thing I talked about in my campaign, at the same time I was talking about the mismanagement of funds, was the revolving door. Excuse me. The revolving door in city leadership, city managers. We've had, I don't know, I think about 27 city managers in the last 5 years. Will Worthy is a good man. He started out on librarian, most of you probably know that. And he's a very reasonable person. We are very lucky to have him. And I'm looking forward to working with Will on all these things. Yeah.
Go back here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, or Mayor tomorrow. I think that your campaign for mayor ran on fear, full of misinformation and half-truths. What is going to be different during your tenure as mayor for me to gain trust in you? And I have been concerned when you put honesty and integrity as your first two characteristics.
All right, we're down to one mic, folks.
I am sorry that you feel that way. Based on your question, I'm not sure that anything I can do is going to make you feel better about the way I am. What I have done, and in fact, I am no longer on Facebook. I think Facebook is bad for our society. I have joined the United Neighbors group, which is open to everybody, by the way.
Here to that. Email to Facebook.
And the city manager and I are working on a program to help people who are addicted to Facebook find other alternatives. We'll see how that goes. You know, once again, ma'am, I'm sorry that that's the way that you feel. I'm not sure specifically what you're referring to, but all I can say is what our city needs is to move forward from where we are. We can't bring back a school board employee that you missed. The last mayor is not going to come back. So give me a chance. Let's move forward. Let's move forward together.
Is this a working mic? Yes, it is. So I spent a lot of time on the south side of the city recently, canvassing, I might add. And it's not the side of the city that I spent a lot of time on. And I was appalled at the condition of the streets all down on the south side. And a good example is School Street, which is a place that a school child would not be safe riding a bike down right now because the asphalt is in such horrible shape. And I'd say that south of the city, that's pretty typical. Is there anything that can be done about that? And why, first of all, why are we in that situation now? And do you believe realistically that we can do anything to fix that in the near future? And I'm not talking 10 years from now, I'm talking like sooner rather than later.
At the risk of getting myself of overstepping my bounds here, the biggest problem that we have, we the city, we the state, we the county have with road repair is that the gas tax that is used to fund road repairs was based on cars that made 7 miles a gallon. These days we have electric cars that pay no road repair taxes. And we have cars that are very efficient that pay very little road repair taxes. In the very short period of time that I have had to talk to the city manager, we have already identified, he has identified for me, that this is something that the city is going to have to deal with in the near future. I understand that there is a group who is trying to work on creating a tax for electric cars and for cars that are extremely high mileage. I think that that will be part of the solution. But as far as right here in Newberg, we spend the money that we are allocated by the state, by the federal government, through this road tax program to the best of our ability. This might be something that we're going to, the state and the feds can't deal with it, that we're going to have to grapple with it in the future. Is that fair? Well,
Yes, and I would add one other thing. There is also currently Preston, the Public Works Superintendent, is also analysing his part of the budget to see if we can remove the summer help line item and replace it with possibly +2 FTEs to increase the total number of maintenance workers. His idea, not mine, is to have 2 teams, an Alpha and Bravo team, to carve up the work into 2 sets of 4 10-hour shifts, rather than having the 1 team with 2 less bodies. That would enable more hours per week put onto road repair. We're still looking at the numbers. This would be for next year's budget. I do not know yet if the pencil is sharp enough to find those 2 bodies. We also have the goal of not expanding the budget. Those are mutually incompatible, but we're seeing if we can figure out how to buy those 2 bodies. We need 2 bodies to change the structure of the team to get those extra hours.
All right, thank you. And we are going to have to close today. All right, we'll take one more question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up today. But will you be available for a short while at the conclusion, after the conclusion of the meeting? You can come and talk to.
My understanding of Peace Trail Village was that it was not a homeless camp, that it was for transition out of the hospital. And my understanding is that our hospitals, not just in Newberg, but certainly in Newberg, are overcrowded because they can't discharge people, because there's no place to send them. I experienced that this week with an older woman who I took to the ER, and there were people out in the hall in the ER. She had to wait overnight to get a room upstairs, and when she got a room upstairs, there were people literally in the hall upstairs who were inpatients without rooms. And so my question to you is, what can you and the city government do in a proactive, positive way to get through that to help people get through that transition so that those who need hospital beds can actually get them?
Did you ever go and visit the homes that they had up at Peace Trail Village? The 3 homes that had been built were on site this year?
My understanding is that those homes are not part
That's true, and you're welcome. Two of those homes were part of Peace Trail Village. The first one that they built belongs to a lady, and that's an entirely different situation. But the other two were part of Peace Trail Village. These are tiny homes on wheels is the correct term for those. And when they proposed it, when they received the ARPA funds, you might remember seeing the drawing. It was 9 tiny homes in a circle, and 2 of them were those homes up there. Now, what those homes had was a front door that's that far up the ground. So it took 3 or 4 rickety steps just to get up to the front door. The size of those homes was 8 foot by about maybe 20 foot. I don't think any of them were actually that big, but let's say that. And they were not built for ADA compliance. There is no way that you could have got even one wheelchair in there, first of all, because of the steps. There was no egress on those. Every house that is built is required to have an egress exit at every living area. And what an egress exit is usually a window in your bedroom that is large enough for you and the firemen to get in and out of, so that if there's a fire between you and the front door, there's another way to escape that home. That particular requirement has been on houses since the early 1900s, I believe, and it's due to a fire that happened in Silver Lake, Oregon, where 100 people were at a town hall meeting on a 2nd-story building, and there was a lantern that was dropped in front of the door. And that building burned up because there was only one exit. I believe over 100 people died that day. And that was the beginning of the safety measures for that. Go ahead.
But I'm asking you what you and the city can do proactively on that issue. I'm not asking you about history, I'm not asking you about Peace Trail Village, I'm saying, what can you do?
The best thing that we can do to help folks is to lower the cost of building a home. There's no reason in the world that a building permit for a single-family home should cost $50,000, and that's the cost in Newberg. So if I can lower the cost of building a home by $30,000 just by getting rid of fees, then that's going to make everybody's life a little bit significantly easier. So that's my intention, is to do what a city should do. The city is not in a position to create housing for homeless people, to create housing for people that live in that are getting out of the hospital. The city's job is to make it possible so that Dean Worth can sell a piece of property to somebody who can build homes for people. And I believe that the city should do it a lot more economically than they are.
All right, thank you. That's going to conclude our time for today. Thank you so much, Mayor, for being our guest today and letting us get to know you. Thank you, sir. Well, we have one important matter of business before we conclude today, and that is drawing our winner for our free lunch. All right, Scott, you're not drawing. Let's see. Let's bring it over here to Margaret. All right. We have 309093. 09